Hello everyone, and today we're back with another video and we're going to be focusing on 10 key and Inspector Calls quotes that we will need for our exams. So if that's exactly what you're looking for, stay tuned. So the learning outcome today is to explore the key quotes, 10 key quotes in an Inspector Calls and their importance. So we're going to start with Act 1. So the first quote is said by Mr. Burling and he says, "I speak as a hard-headed businessman. This shows his pride and his hard-earned success." Quote number 2. "You're squiffy." Sheila says this to Eric in Act 1, and this shows their relationship and that he drinks a little bit too much. Squiffy means when you are slightly drunk. And remember, Mr. and Mrs. Burling actually don't know that Eric drinks so much. Quote number 3. Mr. Burling, referring to the Titanic, says, "Unsinkable, absolutely unsinkable." This is dramatic irony, as we know the Titanic did actually sink. And I've got a little bit more information on that in this video up here, which takes a look into deeper context, so make sure you check that out. So from this quote, what I've got is that it could refer to the family metaphorically sinking later on in the play. Which moves me on to quote number 4. Sheila says to Gerald, "Yes, except for all of last summer when you couldn't come near me and I wondered what had happened to you." This forebodes an event that we later on learn about in the play when Gerald is with Daisy Renton. Which brings us on to Act 2 now, and quote number 5. So Sheila says to Miss Burling, "We really must stop these silly pretenses." This shows that Sheila is starting to understand and digest what the inspector is saying, and it also shows that there's a barrier growing between her and her mother. Which brings us to quote number 6. Miss Burling says to the inspector, "Girls of that class." This shows that Mrs. Burling regards herself of a higher status to others. The emphasis on that shows that she does not think very highly of the lower class. And now we're moving on to quote number 7. Eric says to Mr. Burling, "You're not the kind of father that a chap could go to if he's in trouble." And this shows that Eric could not go to his father for anything other than money. And at this point we start to see that Eric and Mr. Burling's relationship is not that strong. Especially because we know from the beginning that his parents don't know he drinks that much, meaning he doesn't really go to them for advice about anything. And now we're going to move on to Act 3, quote 8. So Inspector Gall says, "We are members of one body. We are responsible for each other." This is the main message of the inspector and the main message that J.B. Priestley wants us to know. This also opposes Mr. Burling's views. Now we're moving on to quote number 9. The inspector says, "The girl killed herself and died a horrible death, but each of you helped to kill her. Remember that, never forget it." The use of the imperatives show that he is instructing them to follow his commands. J.B. Priestley is expressing his view through the inspector. And now, quote number 10. Mr. Burling says, "Look, Inspector, I give thousands. Yes, thousands." This shows that Mr. Burling still adopts the view that money can fix any problem. He hasn't actually learnt anything from the death of Eva Smith and his family's contribution. And this kind of follows into the rest of Act 3 as he thinks it's okay to go back to how everything was before because they discovered that the inspector wasn't real. But actually, has he learnt anything from what's happened? Okay guys, so we've reached the end of this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video and check out some more of my other videos too. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on social media. Until next time, bye guys!